What's up, guys? Welcome back to Project Parker. Welcome back to Project Potter. My name is Kylie, your host, guys. Welcome back to another night as we're leading up to No Way Home. Guys, tonight we are doing The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is finishing off the Amazing Spider-Man series here. It's just a two-parter, so not a trilogy like the Raimi trilogy was, but I got a lot of thoughts on this one, guys. If you haven't been here before, welcome. If you haven't seen this series before, what we do is we're reviewing every Spider-Man live-action movie plus Into the Spider-Verse. So far on the channel, guys, we got obviously Into the Spider-Verse. We got Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3 for the Raimi trilogy, and The Amazing Spider-Man 1. And now, guys, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is going up. And so we go through our favorite scenes, guys, or my favorite scenes, I should say, issues I had with the movie, and some of my least favorite scenes, a score out of 10, and the rankings, of course. So welcome, guys, and let's go. So this movie, I think I was sleeping on this movie because this, again, I mentioned before the reviews, guys, the amazing movies are the movies I've seen the least. I think last night was the second time or third at the most I've seen Amazing Spider-Man 1. And I think that this movie, Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm pretty sure I've only seen one other time. So I'm pretty sure this is my second ever viewing of it. But either way, guys, it's a very low view count. So these are basically fresh movies to me. And man, guys, I was so wrong about this movie. Similar to the first one, this movie starts a little slow. And so I was like, okay. We get goofy Jamie Foxx in this movie, who's Max Dillon, and man, just a sad sap of a man there. Just the nicest guy, but just like, everyone's kicking him when he's down and he's walking around with his blueprints, and it's just sad. And you're like, man, they took Jamie Foxx, who is like, I look at Jamie Foxx and I'm like, he's the coolest dude. That dude played Django, dude. Like fastest gun in the West. And it's like, and then I see him over here, he's got glasses, he's like stuttering and bumbling, and you feel so bad. Jamie Foxx does such a good job with this character, where I think a lot of people will make fun of it, but like he's so, for lack of a better term, he's such a loser that you genuinely feel bad for him when you're like, oh my God, this is the nicest guy. And like he says, he's invisible. And it's just super sad because, no one cares about him. BJ Novak from The Office is like, oh, happy birthday, dude. Like no one knows it's his birthday. But everyone's leaving and he's like, yo, can I leave? And they're like, oh, actually go check out floor 39 with the eels or whatever. And there's a thing on there. And so he goes over there and obviously he's like, yo, can you kill the power? Like it's pretty dangerous up here. And he calls some guy and he's like, nah, man, I'm already out the door. And it's like, I get it. And now he says it's dangerous, but then he's like, oh, I'll do it myself then. And I'm like, how about you just go home, Max? And he obviously shocks himself and then falls into eel. It's like a gruesome death. And then he turns into Electro basically. And all the Electro stuff, guys, I gotta say I did not like the first time. I really, really liked everything with Electro this time, which took me by surprise. I was not expecting that. And so I'm watching the 4K, of course, and so it looks amazing. And the effects are really good. This is a 2014 film, so it's a pretty recent film. And the Times Square scene there where he's going off against Spider-Man and he's like, I just wanted to be seen or whatever. And he's like, I'm sorry. And he's like making his way through the city before he gets there. And, he wakes up like in the morgue and he's like, oh my God. And he is realizing that he can harness, he needs to feed off of electricity. And then he goes to New York's Times Square. And then he starts going into the grid and he's just misunderstood. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't control this. He's like, I have so much anger. And the whole reason that Spider-Man comes into play is because Peter ends up saving him one day where he swings in and saves him. And he's like, hey, Max, he's like, you're my eyes and ears down here, man. He's like, yeah, cool blueprints. He's like, yeah, I need you. And he's like, wow. And he takes it to heart and he's like, he needs me. And it's like his hope. And Spider-Man shows up obviously to face Electro in Times Square. And he's like, hey, you remember me? And he's like, oh, yeah, you're, he's like, well, you don't remember my name? And he gets so offended and he starts attacking. And we get this amazing slow-mo sequence, guys, where Peter's got a web shooter, but he designed it so it shoots out in every direction now because this Peter Parker's super smart. That's how Andrew Garfield does it. He slow-mo goes back. There's a cop car coming. Electro sends these electric waves that go up there and it looks so cool and it goes up the railings. And Peter, his spider sense is so good that he not only does he avoid it, shoot a web to stop the car, he then whips left and right, dude, and pulls the people's arms. These people are going to touch the railing, get electrocuted and probably die. And he pulls both of their arms off before they can get the railing. And it's like, all within a split second. It's an awesome scene, dude. Really, really cool visually. All the action in this movie is great. But guys, once again, similar to the first movie, the main star of this show is Peter and Gwen's relationship. And they were so cute together, guys. And in the first one ends, and he's like, that's a promise, or the teacher says, like, don't make promises you can't keep, Mr. Parker. And he says, but those are the best ones. And then Gwen ends with a smile there. And so we knew they were going to get back together, and things are going great, and they're graduating and everything. And we get a scene where Peter is like, chasing after the dude who becomes Rhino at the end of the movie, Alexei, whatever. And he's like, it's crazy. I don't know if it's Paul Giamatti, just way over the top character. And I did not like this character in this movie, but he's driving this truck out of control, and Peter's going there, and he's doing all the stuff, guys. But Gwen is calling him, and she's like, yo, where are you at? And he shows up like at the last second to the graduation because he doesn't want to miss her big speech. And then he like literally shows up, gets in his graduation stuff, and he still got his mask on. And then I was like, oh, is he going to wear the mask by accident? But he takes it off at the last second. And then he kisses Gwen, and everyone's like, oh. And then he like high fives the principal or whoever's giving out the degrees or whatever, or the diplomas, which is awesome. But guys, every time Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are on screen is so damn good. And it was so good in the first one, and it's like a whole other level for this one. And what I love about this movie is that they throw a wrench into this one where we get these weird like Dennis Leary flashback ghosts, like where he just stands there and just looks at him, and it's like it's supposed to make Peter feel guilty, and he does. I didn't need him to see Dennis Leary. Okay, I understand that he's guilty. We all know what happened. Okay, there's like the beginning. Oh my God, sorry guys. The beginning of this movie, they go full on secret agent. Remember, guys, last movie, Peter's parents were secret agents, and we're like, what's going on there? And they left. They didn't even say I love you to him. And we're like, what the hell, man? And then this movie kicks off with the plane scene. Everyone thinks that this movie kicks off with the logo behind Peter. And that's the second scene in this movie. And that scene is amazing, where he swings in, guys, and the theme is going, and it like shows just the logo and then fades in on his back, and then he's swinging around. It looks incredible. But that's the second scene. The first scene is the plane scene where they're trying to upload the files and send the data to Roosevelt. And we're like, is that Teddy Roosevelt? They're like, what's going on here? He goes to the bathroom, and then this guy comes out from the cockpit, and he's like, hey, not like never stop working or whatever. And he's like, yeah. And he notices the guy's washing blood off his hands, and we're like, oh. And Richard Parker knows something is up. And so he starts uploading the file. And there's like this big fight scene where he's like, oh, you thought you guys could escape, huh? We still don't know really what's going on. There's this big fight where Richard eventually like shoots out the windows in the plane. And so it like sucks the guy out there. And he like, the upload stops like 4 times, but he connects it. And then he's like literally, right when it finishes, he like lets the laptop go or whatever. And like the plane takes a nosedive because the pilot is dead. And so like they're just careening down. Mary gets shot, but it says they were killed in a plane crash, and I was like, oh, is that like a fake story? But it's like, no, they actually did die in a plane crash, but they got the files uploaded at the end. Super awesome scene, like a really, really cool scene where I was like, we don't need more of this secret agent lifestyle. But then the scene happened, and I was like, this is badass, dude. This is awesome. Like, this is a really, really awesome scene, and really glad they did that. And then at the end, of course, guys, we find out that Peter goes down and finds the secret underground, puts the coin in there, and that activates the secret underground train, which was like, I think Teddy Roosevelt used to hide from the American public or whatever. That was amazing, dude. Like, what a cool thing where he discovers that. And they're like, oh, that's sending it to Roosevelt. That's what Roosevelt is. And, the train pops up, and it's like their secret lab and their data. And that's where we get the video, guys. And we get a glimpse of this in the beginning. I think it's like early in the movie. It might actually be right away in the beginning, where Richard Parker is speaking to the camera, and he's like, they'll call me a monster, but he's like, I want the truth to come out there. And I'm like, oh, dude, it's so well done the way they do this. Like, because you're like, what did they do? Like, what's going on? What's the big secret? Like a suspense thriller. It's really awesome. And so eventually at the end, Peter finds it. And it's so heartbreaking, dude, because he like is crying and he's looking at it. And Andrew Garfield just absolutely crushes it in this scene, where he's looking at his dad, and he's like, this is like fucking Rogue One over here, dude, where he's like, hey, I'm working with Norman, and Norman, I don't know how exactly he got like the reptile disease that Kurt Connor's got, but that's like the Osborn disease now. And so he's like, hey, guess what? It's not working. But then he's like, hey, what they don't know is that, oh, sorry, I forgot. He said that Oscorp wanted to like take the DNA and turn that into like a biochemical weapon. And so they're going to use that. And he's like, actually, the one thing that they don't know is that they need my DNA. They need Parker DNA or it's not going to work. And so he's like, I put my own DNA in the spiders. And so they destroyed the spiders. But basically, without that DNA, it doesn't do anything, which is why when Harry takes the serum at the end there, he turns into like the hobgoblin and a monster instead of curing him. So that was all crazy stuff. Guys, the scene where Harry goes to see his dad and they're like, oh, it's dark in this room, but it's you'll see why in just a bit. And it's like so messed up, dude, where we heard all about Norman Osborn in the first movie and they're like, hey, he's dying. We got to figure this out. And that's what Kirk Connors was doing. Kirk Connors wasn't successful. They mentioned him in this movie where Harry was like, oh, he was weak. I'm an Osborn. I'm like, calm down, dude. You're a 20-year-old kid. And obviously Kirk Connors was super smart. But they were like, yeah, 14 years of research and they never got to human trials. And then we see Norman Osborn on his deathbed and it's so creepy, dude. It's so well done where like his whole skin is like green. He's all messed up. But he tells him it's like a genetic disease where he's like the Osborn curse or whatever. And he's like, are your hands starting to shake yet? I'm like, I don't really understand how they got this disease. Was it because of the testing that they were doing? Was it like Norman and Richard were doing testing and then like Norman got infected? And they couldn't figure out how to solve it. And then Norman had Harry. I'm not really sure. But I do want to say, guys, I don't know why they gave him like sort of like an emo look here with the Toby. Maybe it was a shout out to Toby's dark suit in Spider-Man 3. But the actor who played Harry, I thought was excellent in this movie. And I can see how he might rub some people the wrong way. But I thought he was like pretty much like a powerhouse actor in this. He reminded me a lot of Tyrell Wellick from Mr. Robot. So obviously, guys, that's my favorite show of all time. So, I mean, go watch Hello Friends. I literally reviewed every episode on this channel. So that's how this channel started. And like just obsessed with power but like doesn't really quite fit in. And obviously he like isn't as smart as Tyrell, but I don't want to talk about that because that's a whole different show, guys. So yeah, I thought he was awesome. All the scenes with him and Peter were great, although it's weird because it's like his best friend, but then he's also like, I haven't seen you in 10 years. And he's like, oh, it's like seeing a ghost. And I'm like, okay, well, are you best friends or have you not seen each other for 10 years? Like, which one is it? But the whole scene where Harry is like in charge and there's just like a hot girl sitting at the, Felicia, just like sitting at the table. And he's like, no. He's like, you know what? What's your name? Felicia? He's like, you work for me. And he's like, you guys all report to Felicia, who works for me. And I was like, okay, that seems like a weird move, but Harry, he's like, oh, a 20-year-old kid, but then he's like drinking later on. And I'm like, all right, dude. But Harry inherits the Oscorp, obviously. And so like he's got all this power, but he's dying and he's like obsessed with finding the cure and he needs Spider-Man's blood and Spider-Man says no and all that stuff. Guys, there's so many things that are awesome in this movie. Scene where it's like shortly after graduation where the guilt is starting to get to Peter and she's like, oh, I'll see you tonight. And he's like, yeah. And then she's in the restaurant with her family and they're like going to meet up to go get dinner. And he sees her through the window and he like starts freaking out. He starts walking away and she gets up and she's like, what's going on, man? And he's like, I can't do this. He's like, you know, your father told me to like stay away from you. She's like, Peter, I can't keep doing this. She's like, I can't live like this. She's like, you know, do you love me? He's basically like, I can't do this. I can't let you get hurt. And she's like, you know what? No. She's like, I break up with you. It's like right how Stranger Things do, but she's like, I dump your ass. It's just like, it's so sad, dude, because it's like, she's visibly upset. She goes in there, she's like crying. He's super upset outside. And it's just like, and obviously I'm just thinking in my head, like they go in there and they're like, oh, is Peter coming? Where's Peter? And then she has to explain either that they broke up or if like he's running late or whatever. It's just that like really sad, like realistic, awkward dynamic. And I think I saw a report, guys, that Andrew and Emma were actually dating during this movie. So it makes a whole lot more sense because their chemistry is so good on screen. But this is like such a sad scene and then obviously a precursor for what's going to happen later, guys. But I love that they struggle with the dynamic here where Emma says, Gwen says at one point, she's like, maybe we're just on different paths. And it's like, man, it's so hard, especially as you get older and you're adult, because like you want to respect your partner's choice and you don't want to like, Gwen has a huge opportunity where she's getting to Oxford and she's like, I'm going to go to England. And she's like, that's a huge career move for me. And Peter knows that he loves her so much, but he knows that like he doesn't want to stand in her way because you shouldn't stand in your way of your partner's advancement. And at the end, he says like he's going to go to England with her. And I'm like, okay, well, why didn't we discuss that earlier, dude? Like, it's just crazy because like they kind of are back and forth the whole movie. They go to Oscorp. It's a really nice scene where Harry goes, talks to Peter, and then Gwen meets Electro, or she meets Max in the elevator, and they're talking and stuff, and they go in the maintenance closet, and he's like, Gwen, this is literally the maintenance closet. He's like, this is the most cliche thing you could do. And then that's when they kiss, and she's like, you just kissed me. And he's like, yeah, how was it? And she's like, oh, felt a little rushed, but she's like, it was pretty good. And man, they're just so good, which makes the ending even more heartbreaking. I don't want to forget about anything here, guys. The scene where Electro gets captured and goes to Ravencroft. I thought they were going to take him to the Raft, but Ravencroft is like, it's like an institution for the criminally insane. It's like an Arkham Asylum, basically, for all you Batman fans out there. But they take Electro to there, and they like, it's really dumb because it's like a whole, like he says, a whole facility run on electricity, and they try to like contain him. They find out like water is his weakness, or like dilutes him, which I think is weird because isn't water a conductor? I don't know science, guys. Obviously, I'm not Peter Parker. So such a dope scene where they pull him up, and he's like, oh, I am Dr. Schwitz or whatever. And he's like, I will find out what you are, where you are. And he's like, I will get the answers I want. And he's like, and who are you? And he's like, me. He's like, I'm Electro. And it's like, I didn't do it justice, guys, but the way they have Jamie Foxx's voice like reverberate throughout the movie once he becomes Electro is so awesome, dude. Like, and whoever created Electro's theme, give that person a promotion right now, dude. Let me say, guys, the sound in this movie absolutely slaps, dude. This sound slaps. Everything in here, the themes, the sound. There's some Kid Cudi in this movie. There's Philip Phillips For You, which is great. And it's just, the sound design is just fantastic in here. Like, there were so many hype moments, dude. The end scene with Spider-Man and Electro when he's swinging through and they got the slow-mo shots, dude. It was brutal, and like I was hyped for it. Like, it was really, really good. I think in the first movie they kind of missed a couple of that ones. One scene I didn't touch on in the first movie, guys, for last night's review is the crane scene where it's like really cliche, but like it's like that was a great first draft. And you know, they had to do the origin story and all that, but this really does feel like a continuation of that. But for that crane scene, there wasn't like a hype. Like, they were just missing something. And in this movie, there's like, dude, I had chills through a whole lot of scenes in this movie where I was like, wow, this is awesome, dude. Like, this is amazing stuff. No pun intended. I couldn't even believe how good it was. Harry and Peter, I think, had a really great relationship. In the whole scene where he's like, oh, do you have a lady? And he's like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of complicated. He's like, that's a question. And he goes over the railing and stuff. And because he's like, you know, he loves Gwen, but he knows he should stay away from her, but he can't stay away. And you know, Gwen talks about in this movie how she's like, it's my choice. She's like, it's not my father's choice. It's my choice. She's got a point, dude. And it's just crazy because, oh, guys, I'm sure there's other stuff here, guys, but I've been going for a bit here about favorite scenes. So I'm going to cut to just the ending here, guys, where like I was tearing up, guys, and I'm still like pretty emotional just talking about it. First of all, one scene I want to mention, guys. So Peter, right after Peter is underground and he finds out, because Gwen has her interview or whatever at Oxford, and it's funny because he runs in, he's like, I just gotta ask you one thing, and she's like, Miss Stacy, should we go now? And he's like, where are we? And he's like, oh my God, Oxford? He's like, I had no idea. And she's like, maybe we're going different paths. And so sad, dude, because they're basically like breaking up again. And he's like, Gwen, good luck. And it's like, it just hurts him to say that because this might be the last time he sees her. But then he goes and finds his parents' stuff, and then he comes out and he's got the voicemail. And I'm like, dude, Peter is getting just the saddest voicemails in the history of voicemails. And he comes out of the tunnel. It's a beautiful shot, dude. Goddamn, does Andrew Garfield look like just like a baller, dude? Like I think he's got a red beanie on, and I'm like, just the coolest dude. There's so many scenes in this movie where I'm like, yeah. That dude's cool as shit. I mean, like that's the coolest Peter Parker you've ever seen. Like a far stretch from Toby. And his mannerisms, dude, in the suit too. All of Andrew Garfield's mannerisms in the Spidey suit are awesome, dude. They're so animated. And it's just awesome. He does things in the suit that Toby never came close to, and I don't think we've seen from Tom either. So there's the amazing scene where, you know, they're stuck in traffic and he's on the way to the airport. And as soon as he hears it, she's on the way to the airport. She's like, hey, Peter, she's like, you know, I think we're just going to cut this clean. she's like, and it's not because I don't love you. She's like, it's actually because I do. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's so sad. But he hears that she's going to the airport, and he swings over, and then the traffic is like stuck, and she's like, what's going on? And then he's like, oh, it's Spider-Man. And she's like, what? And she gets a smile, and she gets out, and she looks on the bridge and says, I love you. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that is the fucking sweetest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then she's standing there and she's smiling, and he comes and swoops down and picks her up, and then he brings her to the top of the bridge, dude, takes his mask off, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm going with you to England. He's like, I follow you. He's like, you are my path. He's like, different paths? He's like, no, I'm tired of that. He's like, there's a million reasons we shouldn't be together. And he's like, I'm tired of all of them. And I was like, yes, dude. Like they just need to, like, the heart wants what it wants, dude. Like, they just need to be like, we want to be together. Like, and we're going to make it work no matter what. And this movie is about hope in a lot of ways. And that's what makes the next part, guys, so just so sad and so heartbreaking and so beautiful and tragic. There's this great scene against Electro, of course. I'm not going to recap the plot too much, guys, I hope. But yeah, they have this big crazy scene. It looks amazing. They realize that you can blow up the battery. Oh, guys, a real quick amazing scene that I forgot to mention. Again, no pun intended. When Peter figures out that he needs to fix his web so he doesn't get zapped. And so they're like, oh, well, the battery's going to blow up. He's like watching YouTube videos, and they're like, remember, if the charge is too big for the battery, it's going to blow up. And he's like, we need a bigger battery. And there's like this testing where the line lights on fire. And he's like, oh, and he keeps putting on better protective gear. He's got like a full suit on, and he's got this huge battery going. It's really awesome stuff. And then when he runs up to Gwen later, where he's like, they're getting the jumper cable, and she's like, have you tried magnetizing it? And he's like, and then he makes it work. He's like, hey, can you shut the hood? And then, because Gwen is like, I'm coming with you. And then he webs her hand, and he's like, sorry, I love you, don't be mad. And he goes away, and she gets so mad, and she goes, Peter. And then she covers her mouth immediately, because she knows, like, it's just a moment where she's like mad, and it's like a couple thing. But then she realizes she just said that about Spider-Man, and she's like, oh my God, I just like revealed his identity, basically. But I thought that was a super cute moment. And then, yeah, it's just, they're on top of the bridge, like I said, guys, and he says, yeah, my path is you. You've always been my path, or whatever. It's kind of weird, but it's so cute, dude, because it's like, he's like, I don't care. I'll follow you wherever. And another quick scene, guys, that I keep remembering, there's so many scenes in this movie. When Electro takes out the power, dude, it's terrifying, because there's planes in the air, and they're like, remember, they're like, okay, it's really cool. Another quick line, guys, that I mentioned in the first movie that makes a big difference. In this one, the subtle line is, he's like, okay, people, like, there's no power. He's like, someone go downstairs and get tech comms or whatever, but he's like, write down everything you remember. And it's like, oh, that's really like an awesome line, or like, it just puts you in the scene there. But they're like, oh my God, there's two planes that are intersecting, like they're going to crash. And the planes are like, hey, we're coming in around 4 miles to go or whatever. And they're like, do you guys read? We're having some electrical problems. And they're like, hello. And it's like, oh my God, dude, these planes are going to fucking crash into each other. And they're going to come back up at the last second. Like, that's going to happen. But when they beat Electro, or they turn the power on, which is just like a big lock on master reset, of course, that Gwen pulls. But they charge Electro, and then at the last second, both planes like go by each other, and I was like, woo, dude. And the guy's like, yes. And I was like, yeah, you saved those planes, dude. I got some Die Hard shit right there. So that was really cool. But guys, I've stalled long enough. They beat Electro, and then Harry comes in, because Harry's obsessed. He's dying, and so I don't blame him. He's got actually really good motivations, where he needs Peter's blood. And so he flies in as a hobgoblin, because he takes the serum, but he's like, yo, it could make you something worse. And he's like, nah, dude. He's like, it's going to be fine. And he's so obsessed with power. Oh, sorry. Now I sound like Andrew Garfield. One more scene that I wanted to point out that was awesome, dude. When Harry gets his privileges revoked, first of all, when he gets the hidden files, it's amazing. The music is going again. He's looking through, and the technology is really cool. It's like Tony Stark, dude. He's going through, and he's like finding all the secret projects and all that stuff. And he works with Electro. He goes to see Electro. Guys, I just can't stop remembering amazing scenes, because there's, again, no pun intended, so many good scenes in this movie. And honestly, my score in my head might be going up a little bit right now as well. When he goes to see Electro, when Harry goes to see Electro, he's like, please, he's begging you. He's like, I need you. And he's like, you need me. And it's like, Max is so desperate to be needed because he's been invisible and no one cares and nobody noticed him at all. It's so sad. It's like such a sad life. But and then they're trying to like cover up his death at Oscorp. It's super sad, dude. It's like a PR move. But he's like, please, I know what it's like to be thrown away. I need you, because his father threw him away. And it's like, oh man, dude, it's like two people that are outcast that like just get it. And so Max taps into his full power, and he like gets out of the cage like through like electric currents or whatever, and then zaps probably kills all of the security guards trying to take Harry. And then his music is playing, dude, and he like forms like Dr. Manhattan. It's so awesome. And they go into Oscorp, and he's like, I need you to get in there and you can get control of the grid. And then you can, like, he wants to be like a god that controls the electricity, which is messed up. But can you blame him, dude? He was like this poor guy who died because Oscorp didn't give a shit about him and didn't put any safety precautions in there. But Harry and Electro go into Oscorp, and they show up, and Electro appears, which is amazing. Like his guys stand there, and he's like got electricity through the chest, like an electric dagger basically. And then Electro appears, which is sick. And then Harry comes in, and then Electro blasts the deaths away. And then this guy who kicked him out, he's scared, but then he's talking shit. And so Electro shoots him one shot right to the heart, kills him immediately. I was like, oh dude, that's a power move. And then Harry's like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the answer we're looking for. And he gets the gun from the other guy who's still smoking from electricity. And then he's like holding it up, and then it's so cool because he's like got the gun up to his head, and he's like, clear. And then Electro brings him back to life, and he's like, hey, welcome to the bonus round. I was like, dude, this is so fucked up, but so awesome. Like, and then they tell him like he gets the information that he wants or whatever. That's when Harry takes him down to the secret projects, and that's when he gets ejected and becomes the Hobgoblin. But that gets me to my super sad point here that I've been trying to make for like 10 minutes, guys. And I'm sorry that I'm rambling, but also not really, because this is a Project Potter review and this is what you get. And I'm excited about this movie. Yeah, they beat Electro, and they're like, oh, everyone's excited. And it's like a happy ending, except it's not, because Hobgoblin shows up and he sees Gwen, and he takes a minute, and I really like this moment too, because it's like the villain figuring out what's going on and not being like a dumb villain, where he turns to Gwen and he goes, Peter? And he's like, so when you said no, it wasn't Spider-Man saying no, it was you saying no. And he's like, please, Harry, you don't understand. He's like, what did you do? I think Peter says like, Harry, what did you do? Because he looks at him and he's all fucked up. And the makeup artists are awesome on Harry here. It really, really looks like a monster. And they get in this big fight there. And, oh, guys, it's so sad because Peter catches Gwen a couple of times where Gwen is thrown, and he like, you think she's falling, and he whips her and then like puts her down there, and she's trying to escape, and they're in this big clock tower. And so eventually Hobgoblin throws like a bomb in there, and Peter has to like catch Gwen initially, because he takes Gwen up for a ride, and he catches her, and then he protects her, and it's like, oh my god. And then she's trying to get down, and basically, guys, Peter, she ends up like falling, but then Peter like throws the web at her, so she's hanging on, but it's stuck on the gear. And then Peter and Hobgoblin are fighting, and eventually, like, Peter's got like his foot up there trying to keep the gear from turning, because when the gear turns, it's going to snap the web, and he knows that, and he's like in a headlock. And eventually, the gear snaps, and so she starts falling, but then all the gears start falling, and then like Harry gets thrown over there, Hobgoblin. And so she starts falling in slow-mo, and Peter like jumps off, and he knows he's going after her. Remember, guys, this is right after he said, I love you, and he said, I'm going in with you, and they're in love, and they're like, oh my god. And so this is what makes it even more sad, because this shot is fucking beautiful, dude. It is like one of the most tragic and most beautiful and most incredible shots of cinema I've ever seen, where Gwen's falling in slow-mo, and she does like she's reaching out, and you're like, okay, well, that's sad, but we're like, okay, he's obviously going to get her. We've seen this in Spider-Man a million times. And so he's going after her, and he throws out the web in slow-mo, and it's so cool because it comes out, and then at the end of his thing, it's a little hand that's reaching it. But then you're like, oh no, dude, this is not a good sign. And so it goes through, and all the gears are falling. It's going through the gears, and she's falling, and then it like speeds up, and then it slows down again. He jumps down, and then he jumps down like halfway and holds on to because the web's not going to reach. So he like moves up, holds on to something, and then the momentum like stops him abruptly. And so the web goes to her and it hits her, but she falls so far that it just goes, guys, and it just I think there's like a crack sound, dude, and it goes silent. And the impact of the fall snaps her neck and kills her. And it is so fucking sad, guys. Like it is, I was crying like a baby. It legitimately like is bumming me out. But it's so amazing and beautiful. Like I'm so glad it's in there, because it's so like, I remembered this scene because how could you ever forget it? I didn't remember the little hand, which was super extra depressing. And I didn't remember like exactly just how well it was shot. But going through the movie, loving their chemistry in one, just watching it last night, and then seeing tonight how like all these different scenes and how they're going on different paths kind of the whole movie. And then at the end for them to finally be like, he's like, I love you, I want to chase you like wherever you go. Also, guys, when Peter is doing the where's Pepe Sylvia thing that Aunt May finds in his room, he says, do I have to lose you too, or I don't want to lose you too, or something. And I'm like, oh my God, so sad and such foreshadowing, but I didn't pick on it too, guys, until the end. But he goes down there, he jumps down, and the fact that it's quiet is so like just amazing cinematography, dude, and so fucking sad because you're like, you like gasp and your heart is in your throat. And he jumps down there and he's like, Gwen, and then she's just quiet. She's dead, obviously, so she's not saying anything and she's not breathing. And he's like, hey, and he like picks her up. Obviously, he doesn't know she's dead right away. So he's like, hey, Gwen. He's like, wake up. He's like, you with me? And then he just starts to slowly realize, he starts breaking down. And Andrew Garfield is so good in this scene where it's like, wow, it's so fucking sad, man. Just to like know that they were that close and they were just about to go to England and live happy life. And the fact that Gwen's dad told her in one, like, stay away from my daughter because like people are going to come, like she's going to get hurt because of you. And the fact that Andrew says, Peter, I should say, in 1 and 2, you can't be near me. If something happens to you, I can't be with you or whatever. But then like there's such strong feelings that they keep coming back to each other. And at the end, he's just like, you know what? Let's just run away. And I mean, when she shows up, he's fighting Electro and she hits him with the police car and she shows up and he's like, you have to get out of here. He's like, I'm not even kidding. He's like, it's too dangerous. I don't want you here. And she's like, I can make my own decisions. She's like, I'm going to be here. And because she stays is why she's there and why Hobgoblin. Dude, it's so sad, guys. It's so fucking sad because it's like, he tried so hard to prevent something like that from happening. And for him to catch her, and it's for the momentum of his, like obviously not his fault, but like the momentum of her falling to snap her neck. It's like, God, it's such a brutal scene. And again, I'm so glad it's in there because it's amazing. And it really shatters your heart. And like you feel it. Yeah, guys, that is, I think I've been talking for like 40 minutes probably, but those are my favorite scenes, albeit heartbreaking. Some of my favorite scenes for this movie. Okay, guys, some of my issues I had this movie are my least favorite scenes. Initially, I hated Jamie Foxx's character. I was like, oh my God, this guy is such a loser. But then, of course, when the accident happens and then Jamie Foxx plays such a good job of being Electro, where he's like, you forgot my name, or you know my name, or when he meets Gwen in the elevator and she's like, okay, nice to meet you, Max. And he's like, wait, she knew my name? It's like, it's so sad, dude, because it's like he's such a nice, like sad character that I initially hated it, but then I guess I kind of retract that because I really liked that element to his character where it's like he's not a bad dude. He just like, it's like Flint Marko, dude, in Spider-Man 3, where he's like, I'm not a bad guy, I just had some bad luck. And it's like, same thing here, dude, where like he turned into a monster. It's actually very similar to what happened to Flint Marko, where he's just trying to do something right, or he's just trying to live his life. And, you know, people are picking on him and then like obviously becomes Electro and the rest is history. But one thing that really bothered me though is seeing Dennis Leary, seeing Gwen's dad, in like 3 or 4 scenes, especially at the end. He shows up again at the end when they're in the power plant, and I'm like, dude, we don't need it. Also, it's kind of spoiling what's going to happen to Gwen, but like, we don't need Dennis, the reminder that when he just looks there and he doesn't say anything, he just gives like a concerned look. And I was like, all right, dude, we don't need that in this movie. I didn't love Aunt May in this movie either. Peter like forgets to lock his door or something, I guess, one day. And so she comes in and she's like, when did you do all this? Like, and she sees all this stuff. And he's like, Aunt May, you need to tell me what's going on. And she says, like, your dad wasn't here for you, but she doesn't even know the secret tapes and stuff, so she doesn't know anything. She still doesn't know he's Spider-Man, apparently, even though she comes into his room one day and his face is all, it's actually a nice scene, but like his face is all dirty. And then like, he's like, okay, just a minute. And then like, I don't know if he like hits the lock by accident or whatever, but the door starts unlocking. And so he has to like, in his suit still, he has to like go under the covers. But then his mask is there, and the last second he whips it up under the covers, and she's like, "What happened to your face?" And he's like, "Oh, I was cleaning the chimney." And I was like, "She's like, what?" She's like, "What?" He's like, "Come on, I'm so naked in here." He's like, "Can you leave, please? I'm very naked." And I'm just like, man, Andrew Garfield just crushes it. But yeah, Aunt May just seems like she's kind of clueless in this series, and I was like, Aunt May's supposed to know everything, dude, and maybe they just wanted to mix it up, but it was weird. She had some nice stuff about Uncle Ben, but I was just kind of like, I don't know, I didn't really care for Aunt May in this series, and there wasn't really too much other stuff I didn't like, guys. Again, it kind of started slow, so I was like, the first and second movies here, for some reason, like they just had a little bit of a hard time getting going, but this one, I feel like the last, I feel like I said this for the first movie too, but like the last hour plus, hour and 20 plus, I feel like the first one did a really good job of recovering and like really getting you into it. I think this one just absolutely killed it, guys. I was so invested in the story and the locations and the characters, and I really liked the addition of Harry. So yeah, I don't really have too much wrong with this movie. I really enjoyed it, and I think I slept on it, and I did not realize that it was as good as it was. And I have some more thoughts on that coming up, guys. But those are a couple of the issues I had with this film. Hey guys, and that brings us to the score. And guys, again, I've mentioned this before. I try and go in here as I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, okay. And it starts slow, and I was like, oh, I don't really like this movie. Like, I don't know, maybe this isn't for me. But I was like, I like the first one, and I love Andrew and Emma's chemistry, and they just completely changed the suit. Oh, I guess, sorry, to add one thing that I didn't like. He gets a completely new suit in this movie because the first one was terrible. But I don't think we see him build it or anything. And it's like, how did you, I mean, we're assuming he just made a better suit, but it's like, where was the inspiration for that design? There's no like montage, I don't think, of him like building it. It was weird. He just has a new suit, like all of a sudden. And it's like, oh, okay, that's the thing. And it looks much better in this one, but there's like no explanation for like how he got that new suit, or like I wish he would have gotten in a fight with the old suit and it got like ripped beyond repair or something, and then he had to create a new one, or like find a technical reason to create it, like he has to advance the web shooter. So I don't know, but anyway, guys, the score for this one, yeah, I was like, I don't know, man, I'm not feeling this movie. Then it got a lot better, and the score was a lot better, and then we just kept hitting these highs, and then talking about it, dude. I mean, I just talked for so long about my favorite scenes, and I was like, wow, this movie has so much more good stuff in it than I remember it being, and some of it is even great stuff, I think. And then just the emotional storytelling, like I was in on this movie. I was invested. I felt the Gwen death hard. And I knew it was coming. But then there's like all these little scenes with Emma and Andrew where it's like, man, maybe they are just going different paths. And to think that like if he just let her go to England, then she would obviously still be alive, but then they wouldn't be together. It's like I'm not trying to talk about the Marvel show, but what if, where it's like, what if this one little event changed the course of history or whatever? Like, what if he did this, or what if she didn't get stuck in traffic? It's just all these crazy things where I'm just like, it's crazy to think about how sad that is. But yeah, guys, this movie, give me one more second because I want to make sure I get this right. But this movie, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, to my surprise, to probably a lot of people's surprise, this movie is a 9.4, guys. This is a fucking film. This is a damn good movie, dude. I was like, man, is this really better than Spider-Man 1? And I was like, yeah, it is, dude, because there's a lot of things you can pick apart in Spider-Man 1. And yeah, that's classic, iconic Spider-Man. The Raimi trilogy will always be classic, but I'm just like, man, this is a great film. And I had a really awesome time the last 2 nights watching these movies. Peter and Gwen, now that relationship, I'm like, it's so good that I was so invested in these characters where I'm like, man, that, like I said, that death hit me hard, dude, where I was like, wow, I was crying at the end of this movie. And I was like, and I knew that death was coming, but like to see all the events that lead up to it, and it's like, man, they were so cute and their chemistry is so good, and it's like they could have been so happy, and just like all the things where Peter was trying so hard to get Gwen out of there, and all that stuff. But I mean, Electro's theme, guys, Electro's design, really, I loved Harry. I thought Harry was awesome. I didn't love like the emo face, really, the kind of hair hanging down there, but I thought he was an excellent actor. And the more I got to see him, he was like making good points where he's like, oh, so Oscorp is covering up, and then Oscorp ends up being the villain, where they like kick Harry out of his own company, and it's just really, really awesome stuff. And I thought that was all great. And I just thought the story was really like much better than the first one, and I thought the action looked amazing. But the themes, guys, there's just so much to love about this movie. And I really, really, I think I hated both of these movies the first time I watched them, and it's been a little bit. I probably watched them when they came out, so like almost 8 to 10 years ago now, roughly, for both of those. And it's like, man, it's crazy how like pretty much a decade later, how I can sit down and think about it with different thoughts and with a critical eye and be like, this is a damn good Spider-Man movie. And this is not just a damn good Spider-Man movie. This is just a great film. Like, this is a good, someone who doesn't even like Spider-Man can watch these two movies and be like, wow, that was a story. I really cared about the characters, and man, was it sad as shit when Gwen died, because that was everything. And when they show Peter like standing at the grave, and there's no Spider-Man for 5 months, where he just gives up and he's like, he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, but he finally watches Gwen's speech on the USB, guys, because I think he missed it because he showed up late. And she's like, we need hope. And she's like, today's a great day. It's a sunny day. It's easy to be happy. But she's like, you need hope on the days, the dark days where you feel alone and you're feeling hopeless. So I'm like, oh, it's so true, dude. We're like, no one needs hope when everything's going great. You need hope when things are going poorly, that they're going to turn around. And it's like, man, for her to say that, and for him to be like, you're right. And they say like crime's gone up and everything. And, you know, they are starting to put together the Sinister Six, which is weird, especially because I don't know if they planned on making Amazing Spider-Man 3 or whatever happened, but they seemed like they were kind of pushing that. But they get Rhino, and then he's like terrorizing the city, and then we get that amazing shot, guys, which I can't believe I forgot about that from my favorite scenes until right now. At the very end of the movie, where the little boy is wearing a Spider-Man costume, and he literally goes out and stands there. The little boy puts on the mask, and he's like, oh, look at this little kid. And then Spider-Man finally shows up, and like there's a scene where the cops are looking up, and people are excited. They're like, oh my God, Spider-Man's back. And he's like, hey man, he's like, you're the bravest kid I know. He's like, I got this from here. He's like, go take care of your mom, okay? And he gives him like a bump. It's just like, oh, and it ends on hope, where it's like, this dude has been through the saddest shit you could ever think of, where he became Spider-Man. You know, he got to see the loss of the love of his life's dad, you know, gets stabbed in front of him and says like, stay away from my daughter, keep her safe. And he tries to do that, and he's like, I am going to keep her safe. And he tries, and then to have her die because of him, because of her being in a battle that was caused by Spider-Man in a way, for him to lose the love of his life and then like stand at the grave for, I think the indication there was that like he went and stood at her grave every day for 5 months because the seasons changed. And it's like, man, dude, just imagine what he's going through. And then for him to be like, you know what, the people need hope, and for him to put the suit back on and go fight again. It's like, there's always got to be a Spider-Man, dude. And Peter Parker will always be Spider-Man no matter the loss. And because the good far outweighs the bad, and he's saving all these people, and the city needs a hero and all that stuff. But yeah, dude, this is an amazing, again, no pun intended, this is an amazing movie, an incredible film. And I was blown away at how good this was, and just how it got better and better and better. And this movie slaps, guys. And yeah, I got nothing else to say. Okay, guys, so that brings us to our new rankings. Once again, Spider-Verse is, of course, at number 1. But, guys, we have a new number 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, coming in here at number 2, guys. Then we have Spider-Man 1, the 2002 film. Then we have Spider-Man 3. Then we have The Amazing Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man 2. And so, guys, those are how our rankings shape out so far. So that's it for the amazing movies, guys. I'm sorry, I didn't announce when we finished the Raimi trilogy that we're going on to this. But, guys, we have the MCU movies next. So we have, tomorrow night, we have Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, which I'm excited to see because I have always just felt something was a little off with that movie, even though I love the MCU and I love Tony Stark and all that. So I'm excited to watch that because I think, because I've been watching these back to back to back and getting ready for No Way Home, and we're getting so close now, where I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready like to just love the Spider-Man universe as we've been going here. And so like films like Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 that I didn't like as much anymore, I'm finding like a whole new like avenue where I'm like, wow, there's so much I missed out on and so much I didn't appreciate before that I love now. And so I think with Homecoming, that's always been a little off for me, but I'm going into it and I know it's like a beloved movie. And so I'm going to go in there. I'm excited for that. Then we have Far From Home, guys, and then we have No Way Home. And yeah, I can't wait, guys. So thanks for checking out Project Potter. Thanks for checking out Project Parker for our Spider-Man review, guys. And Ellie's been coming in every night. So this has been an exhausting week and a half or so for me, but I'm excited, and it's all leading up to Friday night, guys, where I'm going to see Spider-Man. I cannot wait, dude. It's going to be surreal to be in that theater. But anyway, guys, I'm rambling. Thanks for checking out the channel. Appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe if you do like the content. And until next time, or until tomorrow night, guys, stay swinging.